So the way a science article is produced is first a scientist starts with an observation. Something in their field of study, something they've noticed in the lab, something they've noticed about the animals or plants they study. They do background literature reading on the 100 years of research that have been done in biological sciences or whatever field you're in. Next, they generate a hypothesis from their observations and the background. And they design an experiment that allows them to test that hypothesis. Scientist does the research, collects data. They compile those data and analyze them, and usually the next step would be to test an alternative hypothesis or conduct additional different experiments. It almost never happens that your first experiment works perfectly. And after maybe several iterations of that, they've got enough data that they think are of high enough quality, high enough rigor that can then be analyzed and written up for scientific publication. So that whole process right there can sometimes take between as little as a year to decades. I'm a sea turtle biologist, so these things live very slowly, and it takes a long time to get enough data from sea turtles to actually produce a data set that you can use to rigorously test a hypothesis. And that's just to get to the point of writing a paper, okay? Writing, drafting, send it out to your co-authors to get feedback. This is something you produced that you think is a worthwhile addition to the current scientific literature. Okay, so once you've done the research and written your paper, all of your co-authors have looked at it and said it looks good, then you can submit your article for publication. And an editor will receive it, and that's the first step. The editor looks at it and says, nah, this isn't really right for us, or no, this science is really bad, or it's written terribly, reject. Or they say, yep, this topic is right for this journal, and it's written reasonably well that I'd like to send it out for peer review. Peer review is when that editor takes your manuscript and finds usually around 3 peer reviewers, experts in the field, to assess the quality of the paper and the quality of the science. And one key piece to this is that you don't know, you as the author do not know who the reviewers are. And the reviewers know that you don't know who they are. So when the reviewers comment on your manuscript, they don't have to worry about the ramifications of how you perceive them because it's blind. And those reviewers will evaluate the quality of the science, the quality of the experiments, the quality of the interpretations that you were making about the results that you generated. So this is a really important step in the scientific process, because if the science is bad, or if the experiments are bad, or if the data are bad, then the reviewers are going to call you out on it most of the time. So the reviewers will add their comments and give the editor a decision. They think this should be rejected because it's bad. They think it should be accepted but with major revisions. The authors need to address all this stuff, but basically the background science is sound. And if you're really, really lucky, then you have an accept with minor revisions where they just have some sort of cosmetic changes. So those reviews go back to the editor. The editor then sends them to you, the author. The author then has to read through these reviews. Remember, these people commented on your manuscript knowing that you don't know who they are. So sometimes it's kind of frustrating getting those reviews back because people are very honest with their comments. And you want to shove your manuscript in a drawer for a couple nights while you're mad about it, and then you remember, this is part of the process. I need to pull that manuscript out and do my best to try to address the comments from these reviewers. So you pull them out, you address the comments best you can, and then you send your responses to the reviewer comments back to the editor. And the editor then assesses whether your responses to the reviewer comments are adequate enough to pass your manuscript on to the next step. So this peer review process is really important in that if there was bad science or misinformation or bad background research or poor writing in this piece of scientific literature, it would be identified by either the editor or the reviewer during this process and hopefully be rejected at that point. And if it's of high enough scientific rigor, then the peer review process and the editor will accept that manuscript to be published in a scientific journal. And so because of this whole peer review process, after the 1 to several decades of time it takes you to produce the paper that you submit to the journal, it takes roughly another year or so for you to submit the article, get it peer reviewed by 2, 3, or 4 peer reviewers, experts in your field, get it back, address those comments, send it back to the journal, and then eventually it will be published in the scientific literature. If you like this video, please share it and like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. We've got much more content like this video that can help us all better understand how science works and how scientists feel about the way science is contributing to the world.